Hello everyone, so some of you will know I threw my hat into the ring for the UK Smashoff competition this year, which is a peer judge competition. So the best part about that is that I've got a whole fridge full of beers that I will be getting to taste and judge for the hub that sent beers out to myself and others in that group. And this video is going to be the first set of beers that I'll be judging for that competition. So yeah, let's get them cracked open and see what we've got. Okay, so before we get started, just got to do a massive shout out to the organiser, David Lucas. So well done. It's all happened really quickly and gone really smoothly with this. It's my first experience of doing the competition. I know there have been some issues in the past with the organisation side of it, because it's obviously a massively complicated thing to do, to get all these beers sent in and then distributed out to everyone. But David and the guys helping him with the hubs this year have done a really fantastic job, and as far as I can tell, the beers got to pretty much everyone so far. I think there's a couple of people still waiting, so fingers crossed everyone gets the beers. If there are any problems, I'm sure it will be down to the couriers rather than any issues with what you guys have done. So thank you very much for organising the competition and doing such a good job of getting the beers out to everyone. So yeah, going to do a little bit of judging on them now. It's obviously going to be quite tricky in terms of judging the competition beers for this, because it's a smash competition, but that still leaves it pretty wide open in terms of what sort of beer you may get presented with. Lots of different ingredients, potentially lots of different styles as well. So it's pretty hard to kind of set a benchmark for where your scoring is going to be and so on. Probably the fairest way to do it would be to line the beers up and do all 10 of them in one go and just kind of pick your favourites out that way. Even doing that though, with lots of different styles and stuff, it's going to come down a lot to your own kind of subjective opinions on the beers and so on, which is always going to be the case. But I want to be able to enjoy the beers and not basically pour them all out in one go and probably end up chucking half of it away. So the compromise I've come to is that I'm going to judge them in small kind of groups, basically 2s or 3s, and try and match them up with beers that are in a similar style or using similar ingredients as much as possible, so that I've got somewhere to judge the level between them, and then maybe at the end sort of just reflect on all the beers together and try and work out or adjust my scoring from there. But I'll kind of do provisional scores when I review them like this, and then they'll probably remain the same towards the end, but unless I change my mind completely once I've tasted the other beers, that's what I'll stick with. So yeah, the scoring is based on aroma, appearance, flavour, mouthfeel and overall impression. Each of those are allotted 10 points. Now I'm going to approach the scoring for that maybe slightly differently than just giving each of them a score out of 10. I mean, I will obviously give them a score out of 10, but for some of those, like the appearance particularly, bearing in mind the short turnaround for these beers, I have had them in this fridge cool, 10 degrees it's set to, since Friday. It's now Wednesday. No, is it Wednesday? No, it's Tuesday. So they've had 4 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, yeah, 4 or 5 days to settle and condition. But the beers were brewed on a fairly short turnaround. They've not been left for too long, so I'm not going to be massively harsh on appearance scores. I probably won't score anything less than sort of 5 or 6, regardless of what it looks like, to be honest, even if it is a complete pea super, because yeah, I don't really feel like it's fair to maybe penalise somebody a whole 10 points for something like that. And also, yeah, I think it should be just weighted a little bit lower anyway. So yeah, real mouthfeel as well. I mean, I'm not really too sure about how to give sort of a score across 10 points for mouthfeel, so I'll probably just go sort of towards the top end of that for most of the beers anyway. For me, really should be on the flavour, aroma and overall impression that the bulk of the points should come from. So yeah, I probably won't be knocking the points down too far for appearance and mouthfeel. Most of the scoring for mine will be on the other, or the scoring that counts will be on the other 3 categories. So that's enough of that. What am I going to be looking at today? I've got two very similar beers, which is why I put them together to judge against each other. These are entrant code 0105 and 0108. They both use Golden Promise malt and they use Jester hops as well. They've both come out remarkably similar numbers wise as well, so they've both got 32 IBUs and they've also both got an ABV of 4.2%. So they're essentially the same beer in terms of the ingredients, apart from the yeast, which is quite interesting because we've got one using a liquid yeast, which is White Labs WLP002, which a lot of people will say or is known as the Fuller's yeast strain. And this one is using NBS ale yeast, which I believe is Neil's Brew Supply's dry yeast from the malt miller. I'm not sure exactly what the source of that yeast is, but I believe that it's a more widely known commercial strain that's been repackaged. So dry versus liquid yeast. Otherwise the ingredients are pretty much all the same. Must have followed a fairly similar brewing process for the numbers to come out like that. So let's get them into a glass. I need to make sure that I'm clear on which one is which, so we'll put the glasses up against each other, get them poured, and then do a little bit of taste testing. So this is 0108. I've used the malt Golden Promise before myself and the hops Jester, so it'll be interesting to see how these compare to my own experience of those as well. Looks like it's got a reasonably nice level of carbonation on this. Try to make sure that my glassware is as clean as possible. I want to give all these beers as good an opportunity as I can. So yeah, beer looks nice in the glass, slight haze to it, nothing too bad. Pretty nice aroma as well. So I do like Jester hops. As I said, I've used them before. They're quite a fruity English hop, one of the newer varieties that has come out. So they've got a little bit of a sort of slightly citrusy edge to them, to my palate anyway, but also that kind of traditional sort of English hop character. So it's got a little bit of a kind of hedgerow fruit flavour to it as well. As for the malt Golden Promise, I find it's quite a nice malt for kind of pale ales and IPAs. A little bit sweet, kind of white bready kind of flavour to it, and yeah, tends to work well with kind of hop forward beers. So that is the other one, that is 0105. Very similar appearance, I would say. Yeah, I mean, colour, clarity, level of carbonation, very similar for both of those. Maybe, I mean, that one's obviously been in the glass for a little bit longer, but it would appear that perhaps there's a touch more head retention on that than the other one. There's a little bit more of a sweet kind of berry smell coming off of this one. Yeah, quite an interesting difference in aroma there. This one's a little bit less intense in terms of the aroma, but there's definitely still some fruitiness there from the hops. Maybe some, again, kind of hedgerow fruit sort of thing. It makes me think of the smell of kind of like a fruity crumble or something like that. So maybe some kind of like cooked apple or even rhubarby type smells in there, but very kind of subtle. And both of them have that little bit of just a kind of sweet grain malt flavour, aroma even. Okay, pretty similar so far, so let's get into tasting. So there's a nice hop kind of kick to that, good level of bitterness, 32 IBUs, works quite well at that strength for me. So flavour wise, it presents kind of like a nice kind of pale sort of cask golden ale or bitter, light bitter, with just a little bit of a fruity kind of kick to it as well. there's something with the malt there that is perhaps just coming through, almost just like a very slight hint of does taste a little bit to me like there's maybe a tiny bit of like scorching there from the boil or the element or something. I may be wrong, but I'm just getting a very slight background flavour of yeah, just a touch of astringency, almost like a slightly burnt malt flavour. Very subtle though, nothing that would you know, ruin the beer for me at all. So let's go for the other one, which is 0105. Yeah, there's definitely a difference in aroma. There's a bit more of a pungent kind of berry fruit thing going on with this one. Maybe like a blackberry or even raspberry perhaps. But again, it's got that kind of slightly stewed, cooked kind of English fruit thing for me, this hop. I think that fruit flavour carries through a little bit more with this one as well. It's interesting because with this being the dry yeast, I might have expected there to be a little bit more fruitiness on the other one, derived from the liquid yeast. But if anything, I think this one here with the MBS dry ale yeast has got a little bit more of that. Again, appearance is very much the same, but there is a difference in head retention with this one, which is just sticking around a little bit more. So the carbonation seems to be holding up a little bit better on this one. Yeah, definitely more fruitiness to it. It's got, again, obviously the numbers are exactly the same, but the level of bitterness does taste similar. It's maybe without that slight astringent taste that I'm picking up on this. It does maybe come across slightly sweeter on this one. Mouthfeel on both of them is it's certainly not a thin beer. I think that one seems to have a little bit more body. This one, perhaps due to the carbonation or something, just a touch less, but yeah, good mouthfeel on both of them. For me, my preference on the two is 0105. Just a little bit more flavour for me coming through from the hops. Otherwise very similar, and there is just this hint with this one. Yeah, just a slightly dry, a touch astringent flavour in the background. Now, at first I thought it might be a slightly sort of like a scorched malt type thing, maybe from a slight bit of burning on an element or something like that. I'm not so sure now. Maybe it's something else there, but it's just a little bit in the background. It's a very nice beer all the same. As I said, it tastes like you know, really nice, well hopped, bitter or golden ale off of a cask. This one's a touch fizzier, a bit more punchy on the hop flavour, so maybe just edging a little bit more towards kind of American pale ale levels of hopping perhaps with this one. Yeah, right, I'm gonna have a little think about the scores and then put my provisional scores up for those two. I will potentially adjust those later on once I've tasted the other beers, but it's quite difficult to set a benchmark with the first beer or two that you try for this sort of thing, but I'll do my best and then see what I think later on once I try the other ones. Okay, cheers. Okay, so final thoughts and scores. Both really good beers, but for me 0105 was my preference. Aroma wise, a little bit more intensity, so 8 to 6 on the scores there. Appearance wise, 7 for 0105, 6 for 0108. Mainly just down to the head retention there, otherwise they were pretty much identical. Flavour for me, 0105 again, it just had more of the hop flavour coming through, so an 8 there and then a 6 for 0108. That was also partly down to just that slightly astringent, maybe little bit of malt scorching flavour on the 0108, so that was a 6 for me. Mouthfeel, couldn't really put much between them, so 7 for both. And then overall score for me, 0105 was an 8 and 0108 was a 6. So totals for me, 0105, 38 out of 50. Really good beer, enjoyed that a lot. And 0108, also a really good beer, but just not quite up to the same standard as the other one, so that was 31 out of 50. But as I said, both really good beers, and some really good scores there for both of them. So cheers guys, and look forward to trying the rest of those.
I'm the dude, so that's what you call me, you know, that or his dudeness, or duder, or you know, El Duderino.